And welcome back, college hockey fans. Another episode of MNCAA with the NCHC crew, along with Max Veech. I'm Nick Maxson. And Max, the thing that we said wasn't going to happen, it did. This is typical Minnesota sports, right? So Sam Darnold can't lose two in a row to the same two teams he did. He also couldn't take sacks to 17 yards plus. He did. No, we're not here to talk about football. We're here to talk college hockey. The biggest thing between our squads, right, the Battle of the Bone, it was the Bulldogs. They got the better of the Huskies. They sweep the weekend series in Duluth and outscore St. Cloud State 7-2 over the weekend. So some concerns on both ends of the rink. We'll talk about that, plus update a very traffic-jammed NCHC picture heading into this weekend. And we talked about this a little bit last weekend, Max, is how if certain things happen, certain results went the way that they did, this could be quite messy. And that's exactly what happened. So, Max, welcome back. Good to see you again, my friend.
Yeah, it's great to be here. You mentioned the sweep at Amsoil with the goal differential being 7-2. UMD had that once earlier this year, and it was against Stonehill. So you heard it here first.
Oh, jeez.
St. Cloud State and Stonehill are identical teams. They're the exact same. So
I appreciate the early knife twist. That'll come in handy later when we make the NCAA tournament. You don't. That's fine. Yeah. No, I'm kidding. No. The way if they repeat that performance, there's some questions there too. Plus, there's some pairwise implications about this past weekend that we'll touch on, which were not good for my team, but better for your squad. So with that being said, let's get right to it, Max. So let's talk about the Friday night victory, a bit closer on the scoreboard, a 2-0 win for the Bulldogs. But again, the concern, if you're Huskies fans, isn't necessarily in goal. I think Gavin Enright has taken over as far as the number one goaltender position has been left again by the injured Isaac Posh. It's again the offense that did not find the back of the net a single time in Duluth on Friday night. And again, the Bulldogs a 2-0 win.
Yeah, I would like to echo what you said. Gavin Enright was fantastic. Obviously, they didn't end up getting the win there. UMD puts up 34 shots and only 2 go in the net. And one of them, he wasn't in the net for. Empty net goal scored by Gallatin to ice it as time's kind of winding down there. So I thought both goaltenders, obviously with Klayton Knapp getting his first collegiate shutout, played well as well. It was a goaltender battle. There were grade A chances on both sides. And I think that both of those goalies knew that they have an opportunity in front of them to kind of establish themselves as maybe the go-to guy. And we'll get into that with UMD in a little bit here as well. And they played like their job was on the line, and it kind of showed. So nothing to be too concerned with on the goaltending front from St. Cloud. But like you said, they just weren't able to get anything past Klayton Knapp there. And I don't know if it was just unfamiliar zone strategies from the Huskies or bad juju. This is the third year in a row that the Huskies have failed to get a win at Amsoil, and they play two series every year, one at Amsoil and one in St. Cloud there. So it's nice to be able to have this to count on as kind of a weekend that you can look forward to regardless of the standings. And that's exactly what it was, this weekend. And it's very similar feeling to the end of the season last year in terms of where they were in the standings and what it kind of meant for each team. But now that we're doing it a little bit earlier in the season, maybe that means UMD can kind of capture some of that momentum and bring it forward throughout the rest of the season here. But yeah, going back to the Friday game there, only 4 penalties in the game. It wasn't necessarily as much of a dogfight, lack of a better term. And I do not mean to be, what would you say? No pun intended on that one.
Yeah.
But it was a fairly even match throughout all the periods. UMD ends up getting 6 more shots on net, but I think it was maybe 1 or 2 a period. It wasn't, them dominating any one of those different sessions there. It was pretty much back and forth the entire time. And nobody scored on the power play. I don't think there was any egregious calls or anything like that. And it was just hard fought hockey, and something I would look forward to watching every weekend if that was what was on the slate.
I would agree. And to kind of put this a little bit more statistical fun, St. Cloud State, normally a team that in recent years has been able to find the back of the net, they're only averaging 2.2 goals per game this season. Now, granted, part of that should have been indicative when you've got rookie Austin Bernovic, I should say freshman, although he is technically a rookie, I guess, in college hockey, being the one that is leading the squad in goals for. He didn't have a goal this weekend. So Max, for Bulldogs fans, right? We talked about this last week, really a little bit more in depth. We've been kind of harping on it the last few weeks, and that is it's coming together, right?
It is.
It is. Now, with this result, right, we can say, okay, there's more progress being made, or is it more than that? Or is this more of a what's to come for the Bulldogs? But certainly this weekend is definitely a shot in the arm as far as energy, as far as I would say morale in the locker room. This is a weekend that Duluth needed probably at the right time as well, because as we've seen in this conference, especially if you just look at the conference win-loss and what can happen there, there's plenty of opportunity for the Bulldogs to jump up. Couldn't have asked for a better weekend if you're the Bulldogs fans.
No, yeah, it was everything that everybody would expect or not expect, would aspire to, and I don't know that we would have changed the way that either one of the games had gone either. You know, I don't necessarily love seeing any players get hurt, obviously, or some of the unnecessary physicality that goes into some tight contests or some rivalry series like this. And there was a little bit of the physicality that we get into in the Saturday game there, but not seeing anybody leave with an injury and getting to see, you know, most of the players, you know, finish out the weekend was great. And I think that was a big part of why UMD had success this weekend with, you know, most of their lines kind of being something they're familiar with. The guys back from World Juniors, obviously they've been there for 2 games now, but it's something that they can kind of rely on and be more comfortable in. We've talked at length about Max Plante's impact on Zam's play and, you know, bringing up some of the other people on the team. I would say Jason Shaugabay kind of falls into that same category as well. He's been great on his own, but even better with both Plantes on the line. And I think that's one that they're going to continue to go back to. I'm not going to say it's never going to be mixed up again, because I think there's always going to be a time where Sandelin and the rest of the coaching staff feels like they need to spread that around or mix up the energy or what have you. But I see those three out there, and having them behind a guy like Dominic James as another reliable source of points, and, you know, not really a threat to give up the puck all that much, is really fun to watch, and not something that we got to see a ton of in the last year, maybe even 2 years at UMD, where the lines were constantly being shuffled and you didn't know what to expect from one night to the next with who was out there. So getting a little bit more regularity and comfortability out of the guys has been great, and something I think they're going to look to build on in the future.
Saturday's win 5-2. Again, the Bulldogs on top. At one point, the Bulldogs led 3-0. Then St. Cloud had to, shall we say, unclip some of the leashes that sometimes hold their offense back, because again, they're a defensive first squad. Made it 3-2, but then again, it's the special teams, Max, that in years past has been, shall we say, the backbreaker against St. Cloud State. It was again in this matchup. Again, Huskies pulled it within 3-2, and then a power play goal put it up to 4-2. And essentially, once we get to the third period, and UMD's got a lead, they're very, very good. In fact, one of the best in all of college hockey about locking down and really kind of securing that lead. Is that what you saw also on Saturday? Because you were in the building at MSOL on Saturday night as well.
Correct. Yeah. You mentioned it. I think it was Dom James who scored UMD's third goal, and that kind of put everybody at ease. There was always a palpable tension, even after the first two going up there. Kleber getting his first of his collegiate career. Shaugabay obviously getting the first one overall for UMD on that line that we had talked about before. But yeah, when Dom James put that goal in, you kind of saw people give a little bit of a sigh of relief. And then before the announcer was even done, you know, giving him credit for it and getting everything else kind of out of the way in terms of the announcements in the arena there, you see St. Cloud get on the board like as the announcement's happening, and then everybody
12 seconds later.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a very quick turnaround, and so everybody relaxed for 12 seconds, and then they, you know, tightened everything back up again. And I think the same thing happened on the bench there as well. It was the first time you saw UMD get a big lead like this against a good opponent since probably UMass Lowell was the last one where it was a quality opponent. And even then, UMass Lowell wasn't ranked as highly as they are now. It was just somebody they knew was a quality opponent and going to be good in the future. So being able to be in that position, I think does a lot for the club. Getting those extra, 2 goals at the very end really, really helped out as well. Being able to battle when you did give up 2 in a row and it was 3-2 was really nice to see. And, having a guy like Max Plante get that 4th goal and not be, stuck in the mud or have it be from a less than reliable source or whatever, just kind of gives the team a feeling of comfortability and reliability that they know they can count on in the future as well. So it's a good statement win, or 2 wins, I should say, over an opponent that I think every one of them respects. So 10 penalties in this game. Like I said a little bit earlier, it did get a little bit chippy near the end, both directions. Didn't necessarily agree with every call on both sides as well. But I would say I do kind of relish the thought that I've got a new mortal enemy on St. Cloud specifically.
Oh,
Colin Ralph is my new number 1 mortal enemy. I think, previously I had picked maybe a 3rd or 4th liner from St. Cloud that was not necessarily going to be the one that was scoring all the goals. Vidi Miettinen was always there, and it was one of those guys that I didn't like to play against just because he was always a scoring threat, but he was never somebody that really pushed buttons. He took 3 penalties in his entire college career, something crazy
like that. It was not a lot. Yeah, he was a very, clean player. He's, typical. I shouldn't say typical, very prototypical European player that likes to play the game clean, but he was also a very skill-first player as well. Definitely looking to shoot the puck more than anything. Colin Ralph, the 6'4", former Shattuck St. Mary, going there for Team USA, also part of that gold medal, winning back-to-back for Team USA. Congrats to him. He uses his size well. We'll put it that way, Max.
He does, and it wasn't necessarily the physical play that it was bothering me so much. It was at the very end. I don't remember who from St. Cloud went off in the 3rd period with the penalty when they were, getting in the back of the UMD players laying in the crease there. But it was Colin Ralph. I think he was turning Fischer around. Maybe it was somebody else on the, lower on the depth chart for UMD that was out there getting some time in. But just obviously and very visibly checking his nameplate to be like, and this is me knowing what he's saying out there without actually having the audio to back it up. He's like, "Who are you? What are you doing out here?" And as somebody who is a World Junior participant, I expect that level of cockiness. We saw it out there, on display in Ottawa when they were up there winning. They would, make the gestures at the opponent's benches and rile the fans up and whatever else. That's part of hockey, whatever. I get it. But you got to get more than 1 assist in the World Junior Classic to make it seem like you're, the cock of the walk or, the big guy on campus. And I think he will have a great collegiate career. I think he deserves many of the accolades he's already gotten so far. He's got the size on his side already. I think he skates very well. It was just something that irked me in the moment because I know Fischer puts in a ton of work. He was really, really important for UMD last year when they were struggling with penalties and faceoffs. I think he was probably about a 500 guy, which was one of the best guys on the ice for UMD to take faceoffs at that time. But just felt like sticking up for the boys a little bit there, and it's nice to have somebody to hate. And like I said, I don't mean that as somebody. He's not a Easton Brodzinski. He's not somebody who's just out there throwing the body around. He's a talented player, but it'll be nice to have somebody to root against going forward.
And definitely some frustration too. The 3rd against St. Cloud State, no stranger to essentially what the implications were after this weekend, and probably seeing the scoreboard down 4-2 in that 3rd period before eventually would make it to 5-2. We'll talk about that here in a second. But Max, I want to get your overall weekend thoughts here for UMD because I want to talk about a goaltender named Klayton Knapp. Now, I got to watch him play for a couple seasons when he was with Bismarck. Looked really, really good. I remember when he made the commitment, and I said, you know what? This could have a shot, right? He may not get it his freshman year. But again, as we know how hockey works, never say never because injuries happen, or sometimes the goaltender just wins the battle for the net, right? With the injury to Gayon, Klayton Knapp, what a guy to have in your back corner if you're Scott Sandlin. And I want to say, passed a test, but he's been serviceable for the Bulldogs when Guyan's been injured here.
Yeah, Klayton Knapp earns NCHC Rookie of the Week. I think it was between him and I think it was the Omaha goaltender that ended up winning it for the for goaltender of the week there. But I had expected to see him on there when you get your first shutout and only give up two goals on a weekend playing the then number 10 team in the nation. I think you have to get recognized for that, and seeing what else happened in the conference, it was kind of a no-brainer there, and he deserved every bit of it. But you mentioned it, yeah. Knapp is playing very, very well with the Adam Guyan injury going on, and it is going to be a conversation moving forward. I think, to start the year, we had questioned whether or not it was going to be a goalie tandem, or if how often we were going to see these guys switch in and out. And then very quickly we saw that, this is Guyan's net, and he played well. He just wasn't getting the results in front of him to earn those wins. And so now that he's been injured and Klayton Knapp has been in there, at least these last 2 games, he has looked like one of the more solid goaltenders I've seen in a UMD sweater in the last maybe 2 or 3 years. So I'm not saying he's going to have it for sure moving forward, but it's certainly going to be a much more difficult conversation to have between Chup and Sandy and Kraus and the rest of the coaching staff there. And I don't know who all is going to be able to make the decisions on there, if the team's going to have any say in it. But they seem to be playing with a little bit better in front of him as well. And maybe that's because they feel like they need to protect him a little bit more than Guyan with the pedigree that he's got coming in. Maybe it's because he's somebody that makes them feel more comfortable in the locker room. I'm not sure what it is, but he is getting the results out there, and he has been making incredible saves when he needs to as well. The Alaska series didn't go great for him, and I'm sure that that's going to weigh into the final decision in terms of when Guyan gets healthy as well. But that being said, I think that he's earned a much more studied look and much more consideration moving forward, given how he's performed in the last couple of weeks here.
100%. And like you said, as St. Cloud has found out that, backup position is not one that is, shall we say, looked at upon any less, right? You need 2 solid goaltenders because injuries happen, illnesses, teams sometimes just don't play well in front of you, and having that quality backup sometimes just to inject a spark to your squad at different times can really help you change the course of a season, or even a game for that matter. So again, Bulldogs get the sweep. Let's do this, Max, because this kind of precurses some other points I know you wanted to make about, shall we say, rankings. We'll go with that way. This was not a good weekend for St. Cloud State in the pairwise. They believe they started between 8th and 9th. They dropped to 17. So that's bad. We'll just put it that way. It's not good.
Not good. Yeah.
No. And while I catch my breath here for whatever reason, St. Cloud State now is in a position where they need to somehow jump at least 6, if not 7 spots. Not fantastic, right? Because as we've talked about in years past, it's so easy to drop. It's so much harder to climb back in the standings because so much out of control. But Matt's Friday night, it wasn't just St. Cloud that had a bad night. There were a ton of upsets in college hockey all around the country. Why don't you follow the listeners and also our viewers and some of the different things that happen around the college hockey world on Friday, because let's just say a lot of eyebrows are being raised across the college hockey landscape with some of the results we saw.
Yeah, I'll be the first one to say I had Ohio State as the last or second to last place team in the Big Ten coming into the season. They are now a nationally ranked team, and they beat Minnesota 5-1 in that Friday game there. And I was wrong. Hand up. I was wrong about Ohio State. I think I'm not sure what the reason is that they're getting all of the success, but they're doing it. So whether it's coaching or certain players stepping up or something else that's happening, they're capitalizing on it, and credit to them for doing so. I don't know how long it'll last, but they're getting quality wins against other respectable opponents as well. So that was a big one. Yale beating Dartmouth was another big one. I know Dartmouth had a hot start to their season. They were ranked in the top 5, I think it was nationally after just 3 games into the season. Again, I had talked about this previously. I don't think you can rank those ECAC teams that start a month after everybody else that quickly. I don't think they can jump or should be able to jump that quickly until they prove it. But at the same time, it's going to be really hard to justify keeping a team down if they're undefeated and they beat quality opponents as well. So I get that, but it was just another quirky thing to see Dartmouth lose yet another game to somebody that, on paper at least, they should have beaten pretty handily. The biggest surprise, I think, of the weekend was Merrimack, and this isn't the first time we've talked about them having a big surprise as well. 5-2 win over Boston College, and they've been a top 3 team the entirety of the season. And that top line is, the World Junior Championship team that was, winning all of these games against the rest of North America and the world in general. Obviously, that's where the title gets its name from. But to lose to Merrimack 5-2 is something that I would not have bet on 100 times out of 100. I would have bet against that every single time. Not only the money line, but that spread is crazy as well. So I don't know if it was just a really bad off night. I still haven't gone back to look at the highlights from that one. But just seeing the box score was kind of nuts as the scores were coming in. And then even past that, we talk about some of the other things that were going on. The CCHA continues to be one of the most confusing places on the planet to try and figure out what's happening. Minnesota State loses to Northern Michigan. It was either their second or third win on the season. That is a backbreaker for your pairwise and your conference standings in general, just because it's so close there. Tech losing to Lake Superior State 4-2. That's not as surprising by a long shot, but it's certainly one that they're going to wish that they had back. I know that they were ranked at some point earlier this year. And then Bemidji continues to be, an enigma in terms of their results here in refusing to beat opponents as well, and losing to Bowling Green. I think this one was in overtime, but 4-3 on that Friday night game. But bringing it back to the NCHC, Omaha over Colorado College, 5-2. A continued tough streak for the Tigers, and Omaha, who had a really good promising start to the year and then hit rock bottom, has seemingly bounced back from that and got the weekend sweep actually over Colorado College. It was at home for Omaha, so that may have played into it a little bit there. But regardless, when you're playing and a quality opponent like that, it's going to be something that you're going to kind of hang your hat on is probably the more apt way to put it. And so that kind of rounds out what I've got here. Oh, and Arizona State 4-1 win over North Dakota on Friday night as well. Again, in Tempe, so it's one of those things where you don't have to play against the crowd, the raucous crowd in North Dakota. But I'm sure plenty of them made the pilgrimage down to ASU to take advantage of the weather, and I hope they did, because it has been brutal here as of late.
It has been brutal. College hockey loves to throw us curveballs, right? Yeah. And I love it for every second of it, minus my Huskies this past weekend. But at the end of the day, this is what it's all about, right? And this is when, although every single game means more, when we get to the turn of the calendar year, I think the teams start feeling the internal pressure, that, hey, we're on the finish line home stretch here, right? So we have to make sure that we're putting our best effort forward, which brings us back to the NCHC Max, because it's a cluster blank. We'll put it that way. So I'm going to read this real quick, and I want to get your thoughts on this, because I don't remember seeing the NCHC up, down, something like this at any point, any seasons I've ever covered there, and it's been since 2018. So North Dakota, Arizona State, and Western Michigan all tied for first place in the conference with 19 points, right? And then just 2 points behind them at 17, Denver and Omaha. St. Cloud State, after not getting a single point, is still at 14. They're at 6. And then both Colorado College and Duluth at 13 points. Miami with a lone 1 point. Again, they've had a pretty tough season. Again, first year for Anthony Noreen. There's more light at the end of the tunnel for the Redhawks. Again, just not enough depth, not enough to overcome what is a stacked NCHC. And just as you had mentioned, you were wrong about one team. I'll put this out there. I'm way wrong about Arizona State. I will tell you, and I will admit, I had them low, really low, just because I did not know, with looking at their history, even last year, right? Yeah, they had 23 wins or 24 wins. But when you looked at who they played, it's like, okay, these are all bottom 50 pairwise opponents, right? So congrats, you got 24, 25 wins, whatever the heck it was. But let's call me next week, next year when you play real opponents. I'm probably going to be getting a phone call here soon because they are a hot hockey team. That building in Tempe this weekend when North Dakota was there was raucous. Tickets were going for what, $400?
Yeah.
You see that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that same team is coming to St. Cloud this weekend. So I'm hoping my Huskies are pretty ticked off that their food bowl was left empty this week because, they do not deserve to eat after that performance on the road. But Max, to bring this back to a clustered standings, first of all, have you ever seen anything like this? And two, is this surprising in any sense to you about where things have shaken out so far this season?
Yeah, I think the biggest surprise, you nailed it, was Arizona State. I was maybe a little bit hard on them to kind of fit a narrative to start the season. I might have picked them second to last, right above Miami. In reality, I wouldn't have been surprised if they finished anywhere from fifth on down. But to have them in second place or tied for first right now, technically, is kind of crazy when we're talking about being in the middle of January and starting to be in the meat of the season here, where we've only got 2 months left of play. So credit to them, the staff, the fans, everybody that they've got going on. They're doing all this. I don't know if Cruz Lucius has played yet. I didn't see him on the score sheet this weekend.
Because I remember seeing on their Twitter that he debuted this weekend.
Yeah.
While you finish that, I will check that. But continue.
But having this success without a guy like that, who was expected to be, maybe your top scorer on the season coming into the year, is all the more impressive. And so, I think it's kind of crazy to have a three-way tie, and realistically having only, two more teams, only 2 points behind there. You could have a complete flip of the standings in those top five in any given weekend if you're getting some ties or God forbid a sweep again from any one of those. So it doesn't end there either. So having your 1 and your 8th place team only separated by 6 points, that's a weekend sweep, and then you're tied with the first place team. So you talk about St. Cloud State only having 14, playing against ASU, who's overperforming, quote unquote, at 19 there. You sweep them and you jump them in the standings, and you're right into that, home ice advantage again for the NCHC playoffs. And, you're not nearly as frightened, isn't the right word, but you're not nearly as concerned moving forward for a week at least. So it makes every single one of the upcoming weekends that much more impactful for all of these teams. And I think they all know it.
100%. And Cruz Lucius was in this weekend. In fact, picked up an assist on Friday night. So, that guy was in the building, on the ice, and onto the scoreboard. And more importantly, he was off the injury list, which is super, super important. So let's do this, Max, because I got a little bit more time here. I want to go through the pairwise, right? Because we really start putting this into perspective, right? We talked about St. Cloud State dropping to 17, essentially 9 spots effectively. But for the NCHC, it still goes like this: Western Michigan at 7, Denver's at 6. So despite some of their shall we say, lackluster plays of late. Mind you, they started 12-0. They're 5-5 since. They're 17-5. Still nothing to be shy about, but they've been a 500 club ever since. Well, Arizona State came in and swept them in their own building, right? And then it goes down to Arizona State down 14 in the pairwise. So as of right now, sitting on the bubble again, you want to be at the very lowest, probably 12, right? You're probably
to be comfortable for sure.
To be comfortable, 10 would be obviously ideal, but that's where they sit. St. Cloud State at 17, North Dakota's at 20. So North Dakota's still outside of the picture as well as an at-large team. And then we talked about Duluth and Colorado College, the Bulldogs at 33, the Tigers at 34. What a weird season for the Tigers. It's been ranked in the top 10 to start the year. And they started out strong, but they just hit a wall since then. So they're going to have to go on quite the run. And even at this moment, they're going to probably have to win the NCHC tournament to find themselves in the national tournament, just because of where they sit as of right now. There's just not enough time really for them to come through. Omaha's at 42. They've also, because of their tough start, right, is going to have a lot of ground to make up. And then I'm trying to find Miami. They're at 61. So again, a tough go is for Miami. Well, let's talk about top 16 for pairwise. So Michigan State is 1, Boston College 2, Maine. Again, the Black Bears continue to be impressive. They're at number 3. The Gophers at 4, Providence at 5. Boston University is at 8. Ohio State is at 9. So again, you talk about teams that have moved up in a hurry. It's been the Buckeyes, UMass Lowell's at 10, Connecticut at 11, Michigan, the Wolverines at 12, New Hampshire is at 13, and Quinnipiac is at 15. Minnesota State Mankato is the last team in at 16. And I'm trying to check here, going through, where is that one team? Oh, yeah. Can't find him. I forgot. So at the end of the day, that's your top 17 there, Mr. Max Veech. Is there any surprises there or any teams that you're like, whoa, what happened here? And the team I was looking for is Cornell, and they're down at 29. There we go. So yeah, that one guy or gal, whoever it is, that would continue to put him as a first place vote, which was quickly disparaged, I think, in week 5? They're not even close. So there we go.
Yeah, I would say biggest surprises. I knew Hockey East was going to be good this year. I did not know they were going to have 5 teams in the top 10 in the middle of January. This is very surprising. We had talked about, the NCHC only having 3 realistically in that playoff positioning right now. Anyway, there's a couple more right in that bubble territory, and that's obviously going to change moving forward as well. But when we started the season, I was thinking we being the NCHC, we're getting 4 teams in no matter what, and it was just a matter or not of whether or not we were going to get 5. Now I think it's going to be a struggle to get 3, and just given where the placements of these teams are at, moving forward. And we talk about North Dakota, and we'll just lump some of the other teams in there, but North Dakota specifically, they're tied for first place in the NCHC, and being 19th in the pairwise. I'll never really understand how that works. Maybe, my pea brain will be able to figure it out moving forward. But I think they are a good hockey team, but they've just struggled lately to win the games that they quote unquote should have. And so for a team that's in first place, they might be the only team that's in first place in their conference out of the CCHA where the fans are actually disappointed with what they're seeing on the ice. And I see it every weekend, and maybe it's just the people I follow, but it's just constant threats of, overturning the rest of the fan base, or, firing the coaches, or why did this player even have this much ice time, or whatever it is. And they're complaining about being in first place. And it's kind of nuts to me. Maybe it's just me being a UMD fan where I haven't been in first place for so long that I can't relate. But it's something that's surprising. Another one to me that's surprising, UNH. I thought they were going to have a lot of goalie trouble coming into the year, just given what they had lost last season, and they've climbed themselves all the way back into that 13th. Maybe playing some of these other highly ranked Hockey East teams has kind of bolstered that. The losses don't matter as much and the wins matter more. But credit to that whole conference for what they've been able to do. It's very, very impressive. And I just, it's not something I've been used to seeing as of late, we'll say. I think the Big Ten has had a really good, strong past couple of years. The NCHC obviously has been in there as well. And then you get that smattering of usually a Cornell or one other Quinnipiac, some other ECAC team that's, dominant in their own conference respectively, plus maybe one other one. And then you get the rest of the slots filled out with your Hockey East, and then one from the CCHA and one from Atlantic Hockey to round out the rest of the competition there. And this year it seems like it's going to be, a much more healthy mix of a ton of other conferences. And maybe it is going to be Hockey East heavy going in, and I'm just delusional. But Yeah, there's quite a few surprises I see on that list right now. We talked about Ohio State, New Hampshire, I just mentioned there, Arizona State, we talked about within our own conference here. But yeah, quite a few things that I think other people are going to be surprised by if they only watch come tournament time, because there's going to be quite a few new faces in the tournament that haven't been there in a little bit, we'll say.
And that's good for college hockey as a whole, but maybe not so good for some of the blue bloods that want the repeated tournament appearances. So, Max, with that being said, we're not going to do predictions this week because that didn't work for me last week. So we'll just recap the NCHC schedule. So for this weekend, Omaha travels to Miami. Western Michigan is headed to Grand Forks to take on the Fighting Hawks. Arizona State, we talked about, is in the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center to face my St. Cloud State Huskies. Duluth is on the road to Colorado College. So a couple of teams that are looking to one, continue the hot streak, and two, trying to find some traction either way, right? So still some pretty good matchups in the conference. Max, any parting thoughts that you say? Well, I'll give you 30 seconds.
If there's any UMD fans going out to Colorado College, I would say take a day trip, go to Nederland. It might be Nederland. I don't know how to actually pronounce it. I only saw it on a map. My wife and I were up there a few years ago. They've got one of the best pizza places I've ever eaten at in my entire life. It's a tiny little mountain town up there. Make the trip. It's very, very fun. And then go watch them play CC.
So a lot of fun hockey again, as we'll be here to cover it for every single one of you. Again, as the season continues, we're into the heart of the NCHC schedule. And just like Max said, we're just about 8 weeks away from NCHC conference tournament play. So the home stretch is coming up soon. For Max Veech, I'm Nick Maxson. Thank you for watching MNCAA and our NCHC crew.